Hi, my name is Oscar and I'm a scientist, and in this video we're going to talk about something that everyone cares about. We're going to talk about the approval rates for your green card petition. It can be a EB-1A petition or an EB2 NIW petition. Those green card processes where you can self-sponsor, where you can self-petition. You don't need a job offer. So let's jump in and let's take a look at the numbers. All right, so the first thing I want to say is that I had made a video like this one just a few months ago. Okay, September 2022, I have this video where I gave you an estimate of the NIW approval rates. And NIW, because at that time I was mostly focused on that green card category. Now, as you know, I have expanded also to EB-1A. So I'm covering both green card categories, the only two green card categories where you don't need a job offer, where you can do everything by yourself without a company or and without a lawyer. Okay, so today we're going to cover both NIW and EB-1A. In that video from September 2022, I gave you an estimate because the data that I found from USCIS, and remember, we always want to go to the official source, in this case, the USCIS agency, that was just data for the overall EB1 and EB2 categories. By overall, I mean that those are the categories that contain EB1A in the case of EB1 and EB2 NIW in the case of EB2. So there weren't numbers specific to these self-petition green cards. They were just the main category, okay? So what I did an exercise of logic to come up with some numbers that I thought made a lot of sense. My conclusion from that video is that for NIW, the approval or the average success rate would be between 81 and 93%, which was surprisingly high in my opinion. Okay, so let me move my face somewhere else because let's talk about today's video. So today what I'm bringing you is new data that a viewer from this channel found, and by the way, I want to thank that viewer. This is his or her name, actually I'm not sure, Maru, and I want to thank this person, and I want to highlight this because this is truly a community effort. This is not just me coming up with some numbers that I found, but somebody conveyed that information, and I'm making this video, and I'll make also the website blog posts as well. So this data is specific for the categories that we care about, EB1A and EB2 NIW. So in that sense, this is an improved version of the video I already have. So let's talk about the data. The raw data is from USCIS, it's from the fiscal year 2022. Unfortunately, only 3 of the 4 quarters are available, but the data, if you look at each of those quarters, they all look fairly similar. So we can be quite confident that it doesn't really matter if the 4th quarter is missing because there aren't huge changes from quarter to quarter. One thing to note is that the numbers don't add up. I put that in quotes here. And what I mean by that is, let's take a look at this screenshot from the website. I have the link here, and I'll give you that link in the description below so you can go and, as usual, check the information firsthand by yourself at your own pace. But in this screenshot, we can see that for each quarter, we have 4 columns: received cases, approved cases, denied cases, and pending cases. What I mean by they don't add up is that if you sum the approved, denied, and pending, they will always be higher than the received number of cases. And this is because what they do is they tell you within that quarter, these are the cases that are in that status: approved, received, and so on. However, there may be cases that have been approved in that particular quarter that came from a previous quarter, and that's the reason why the numbers don't fully add up. So that's the little bit of negative news. The positive news is that in this new set of data, if you see here, and I'm sorry, this font is super small, but if you go to the raw data, you see that for each employment-based category, for example, here I'm pointing out EB1, you have the different subcategories. For EB1, we have EB-1A, which is the one we can self-petition, then EB-1B and EB-1C, which require job sponsorship. So the numbers are really broken down by each subcategory. So what I did to calculate the percentage approval rate is I compare the columns approval versus denial. Okay, and here in this next slide, I give you, for those of you who are like me, a little bit nerdy, a little bit scientist-like, I give you the formula I use in the very simple spreadsheet I set up to calculate this. What I did is I divided the approvals by the sum of the approvals and the denials. So I basically compare approvals and denials, and I multiply it times 100 to get the percentage. So in other words, I ignore all the pending cases for each quarter, because what we really care is what is the outcome of those cases. So those that are pending, I mean, they will be resolved at some point. We care about what is the outcome. Is it a yes or a no? And what I could see is that this method provided consistent results throughout each quarter as well. And that was really good to see. So now we are going to get to the results. But before that, a little bit of advertisement. As you know, I just added one more website to my quote-unquote portfolio. Now I not only focus on EB2 NIW, I also want to help all of you who may be interested in EB-1A green card category. So you can take a look at this new website, eb1greencard.info. I will start populating it with a lot of free information. I already have 4 blog posts that you can go ahead and read. And I already have a download section that has an I-140 sample petition. So you can see how a cover letter looks like, recommendation letters, how everything is argued, so you can build your case based on a very concrete example, for, in this case, for a biotech scientist, which is me. All right, so with that being said, let's continue and let's look into the numbers. So the results, without getting into, you know, more and more Oscar speech, for EB-1A, the approval rate is between 70 and 74%. And for EB2 NIW, the approval rate is between 87 and 90%. And again, this all comes from that raw data. What I have here is a screenshot of my own spreadsheet. And I have everything for EB1, including EB1A, and the categories for EB2, including NIW. So let's come back to this in a second, but let's look into the numbers more broadly. So for the EB1 category, the lowest approval rate was for the EB1A category, which I missed here, but that's what I wanted to say. Let's get back here. So if you see, for example, for the first quarter of 2022, EB1A had an approval rate of 73%, and EB1B 92%, EB1C 86%. So the categories in which people used a sponsor had a higher success rate. And that makes sense because they also have a lower standard. As you go down that list, the standard gets lower from EB1A to the other two. Okay, so that's the first thing I wanted to point out, other than the number itself for the success rate. And another thing that is not captured on that table is that EB1A and EB1C had a similar number of cases, about 40% each out of the EB1 category. And EB1B, which is for outstanding professors and researchers, was only about 20%. EB1C is for multinational executives. All right. For EB2, in EB2, the national interest waiver category had a much lower approval rate than the other categories in EB2. So we see that EB2 overall and EB2 just the general sponsored green card had almost 100% approval rate, a little bit less. And remember that in those categories, you need to have a labor certification. So even though the success rate is higher, the barrier to entry is also high because you need a job offer, you need a company sponsoring you, and then they need to do one more step, which is the perm or labor certification. So of course, NIW has a higher success rate compared to EB-1A. Makes sense because it is a lower standard. EB-1A is extraordinary ability, and by the way, if you want to learn more about EB-1A, I have a video you can go watch in the link I'm going to leave here. And EB2 NIW is about exceptional abilities, which is lower for USCIS in terms of requirements. Okay. Another thing that I wanted to point out that is not captured in the previous table is that NIW gets a lot more attraction in terms of interest from petitioners compared to EB-1A. More or less roughly 2x number of applications for NIW compared to EB-1A. And that's also related to the fact that EB-1A is a much higher standard, so it's more difficult to get. You need 3 out of 10 criteria that you need to prove you meet. And those criteria are higher in demand in terms of quality of what you need to get than NIW. So it makes sense that there's more people applying for NIW than for EB-1A. That's why, in my opinion, if you qualify for both of them, now is the time to think about EB-1A because there's less backlog, because there's less people applying to that category. And that's what I discussed in the video that I referred to earlier. So my conclusions for this is that the average approval rate for EB-1A is between 70 and 74%. The average approval rate for EB2 NIW is 87 to 90%, much higher. But right now there is retrogression in that category, and you can watch a video that I have about retrogression to understand what it is and how it affects EB2 NIW. And by the way, this 87 to 90% is really aligned with my previous estimate from that September video that I talked about earlier in the beginning of this video. And that made me a little bit proud. What can I say? This is not your probability of success, okay? So when I talk about percentages here, approval rate, success rate, this is the average for all the people that applied in that particular time frame in quarter 1, 2, or 3 of fiscal year 2022. Each case is different. So you cannot think that, okay, I'm going to apply for EB1, my chance of success is 70%, or for NIW is 88%. That's not the case. Each case is different. USCIS decides on a case-by-case basis, and the success of your case will depend on factors like your profile, what are your qualifications, your petition package, how good you craft your petition, your application, your cover letter, how good you are at arguing your case. And that's why I provide a lot of material in my 2 websites so you can learn how to do it properly. And also factors that we cannot control, like the USCIS officer that will take our case, read it, and decide on it. So keep in mind that this is just an average number based on the overall statistics, okay? I don't want anyone to think that this is set on stone and you will get this probability of success no matter what. So earlier I talked about my new EB1greencard.info website, and now, as usual, I wanted to close with my EB2 NIW info website. That website has been there for months, is really populated with a lot of material. I'm particularly proud of my EB2 NIW course. It will walk you through all the steps you need about this category, about how to craft a good cover letter, a good package, and you basically don't need much more if you are a person that can put the time and the effort to prepare your own application and be successful without a job offer and without lawyers, okay? I have to say that recently I am receiving a lot of messages from my viewers, from readers from the website, people that downloaded my petition, that is enrolled in the course. And I'm getting those messages that really make me happy when I read Oscar, I got my I-140 approved after XYZ number of months. I used your I-140 to guide me to be the reference I needed. I submitted it, no lawyers, and I got it done. That really is something that I love, and so if you're one of them, please never hesitate to write me an email or just go on my Instagram, which is Oscar's Green Card, and send me a message. I will deeply, deeply appreciate it. With that being said, as usual, I wish you good luck in your green card journey, and I'll see you in the next video.